Happy Purim. Yeah, how fun. I'm doing a different kind of show today because it is the festival of Purim today. So we're going to do it a little bit shorter. We're going to just do it, mix it up and do a different show today. So I hope that's okay with you. I'm going to go ahead and grab something to eat. I'm so excited to break this fast with you ladies. We made some flatbread this morning, and frankly, I've heard my family said it's really good. Sprouted wheat flour, sprouted barley flour, white flour, salt, olive oil, yogurt, and eggs, a little hint of sugar. I think that's all I did. And then we have a stone that we put into our oven and heat that up to 400 degrees so the stone gets really hot. And then you roll these out and you throw them onto the stone and make some really good, really good flatbread or matzah. Oh, I did put a little baking powder in it to kind of give it a little bit of a rise. But if you girls have fasted with me, I'm breaking the fast right now, and if you're gonna break it with me, fabulous. I'm so hungry. Oh, that first bite after a few days of not eating, it's almost like between life and death kind of thing. Because when you don't eat, you would die. Eating means life. I think they can see me, so I'm gonna put that back. Yeah, you wait for that. Yeah, I'm not ready yet. Okay. That was really, really good. So you bake it like, the longer you bake it, the stiffer it gets or the harder it gets. The shorter you bake it, the softer it is. So you can actually make it so that it folds really well. If you only put it in the oven for maybe a minute or two, you throw it there on the stone for a minute or two. This morning we had something like shakshuka. It was, I was trying to throw a Persian flair on it, but whatever. When there's snow outside and you can't have your own herbs and stuff, it's really, really hard. But anyway, but we made it a little bit, Isaac made it a little bit, I want to say stiffer. See, I'm so tired. My brain is in a really relaxed state from the fast. He just baked it longer, so it's harder. So you can kind of dip it into your shakshuka. We made yesterday. They're a little, I don't know if you can see them. They're there. Yeah. These are kreplach. So it's dough that you fill with like a meat kind of thing, and then you boil it, and then you bake it. So, and it's made, you twist the dough so that it looks like a Mordecai's hat. There's a lot of mushrooms in there, so I don't cook it with meat. I do kind of a fake meat kind of thing with a lot of mushrooms and onions and garlic and lots of seasonings. That's really good. Feels good. But you can dip it in like a mustard sauce, or you can keep the juice of the mushrooms when it's buttery and stuff, and then you can use that to dip it in. Super good. So I cooked while I was fasting. I made rosewater cookies. They smell like rosewater, and so it has the smell of Purim first. And then I made cardamom, or like Persian chocolates, so it has cardamom and pistachios. It's monlach. This is poppy seed candy. Yes, so good. Not as skinny as I thought I'd be after 3 days of not eating. I did try to pray, specifically for, like Esther did. So this is one of the neatest things about Yahovah's feasts and festivals, is that they come every single year. They are like, they're annual, they're weekly, they're monthly, and so as they come every year, you get a chance to do it again. It's the coolest thing, because if you didn't do it really great, if you don't think you did it really great the week before, you get another Shabbat to practice on, right? Same thing with Purim. Like, sometimes I've really been on my face. I've been like, for the last 4 years, we've had really hard Purims where I've felt like I had an enemy, where Yehovah was needing to fight for me. I was on my face. I entered Purim in that fast into like an experience with Queen Esther. This year is honestly the first year in a very long time that we entered this festival with our sorrows actually being turned to joy. It's so amazing, because it's a different experience. So some Purims are one way and some are another, and I'm so happy to experience the Purim of when our sorrows were turned into joy, to actually celebrate on a personal level. This day is awesome. So we're entering this festival with a whole happy heart, and I have a couple books online about our story, about Isaac and my story. There's 2 books. One is Awaken Hunger. It's his story it's kind of like prior to understanding what Hebrew oneness is, and then the Hebrew oneness book is about us becoming Echad. So I've got a presentation here for you. I have a Purim video out there that teaches all about Purim, about what I know of Purim. I have 2 Purim, I call them trailers, kind of like videos that walk you through a few celebrations that we have done in the past, how we set up, how we decorate, some of the food. I'm teaching at the festival, and the corridor one is there as well. So I have those 3 things up. Plus, I'm going to be, hopefully over the course of the next year, making a Purim handbook, so that everything that I love about this festival, everything that I know about, it's all going to be in one place. How it relates to being a Melchizedek priest and the importance thereof, I'm going to put that in a book as well, so that will be available. What I wanted to do today was to show you just by example how I teach at the feast. So tomorrow is Shushan Purim, and we are going to celebrate with a huge group of people, and we're going to have a Purim spiel, which is basically a play, and we do it like an improv. So I have a script that I'll hand out, and it's done quickly. It's not something that people get to think about a lot, so it can be really funny. So we're going to do a play, which takes up quite a bit of time. It's almost a 2-hour play, just because it's so fun and lots of scenes. But we eat while we do it, so I'm calling it a dinner theater. So it's a Purim dinner theater. So we sit, we eat, and we watch these scenes being acted out. And so we'll eat. We're going to do tomorrow a quiz as well. So we go through that verbally, and I have prizes. So I have 3 prizes tomorrow. One is for the family that wins the quiz. I have a prize for the best dressed, best costume, and I have a prize for the best actor or actress. And I use the people who came to the feast to vote. So everybody votes, and then I give them, this is at the end. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. We have a big kind of banquet hall we're going to prepare in a place, and it's going to be really beautiful. So it'll invite people in. I'll have music playing. I'll have lights, not candles, but I'll have white lights, and just a really nice place for everybody to focus on the feast for just that little bit of time. So that's what I do tomorrow. Normally in that scenario I teach as well, just a little bit, and I keep it down but time-wise, but over the course of the years I've been trying to figure out good ways to engage the audience. And so today I am going to just kind of run you through real quick how I would have engaged the audience tomorrow, but instead I'm doing it today. It's all about the goal. The goal is whatever things we choose to do, how we celebrate the feast, what we choose to enter. It's all about, for one, learning what Yehovah has for us, about his heart towards us, and about being one with him, right? About being with him, aligned with him, and delighting in his ways. So I'm just going to show you this afternoon what I would do to teach Purim at a feast or a festival or at a banquet, so that you can also maybe figure out how to, and maybe you want to do the same. It might spark some creativity in you, some inspiration, that sort of thing. Now, I would say Purim is about, I love visuals. I love visuals. Okay. It is about so many different things. It is an incredible festival, one that means a lot for the nation of Israel, and one that means a lot for us individually. It has a lot of prophetic implications to it, and it's got a lot of like prophecies in it, like shadow pictures of things to come, shadow pictures of what was to be. And so there's so many layers and so many depths to Purim. We're just going to talk about a few of them, and we're going to do it briefly. I'm just going to kind of go through I've got a huge stack of these wonderful bubbles. Just so you know, there's like, I just went and got some poster board and put some magnets on the back and wrote These and this is a the front of a oven that Isaac got from a junkyard, and we spray painted it so it's metal, so everything will stick to it. Purim is about history, so it's about Israel's history. It's about Amalek's history. It's about Yahovah's history. So Amalek was the villain, basically, in this, the family of Amalek, a villain. And then about Israel, the bride, and how the bride was attacked by Amalek. Okay, so you got a lot of history there. You know, there's history about, you know, which king is it, when it happened in history, all the wars that led up to that moment. It's just world history. You know, this is a huge part of world history. It also is about Yahovah's history, as in his story, as in this is what did he do, how did he come through for his people. You have the 10 tribes that went to the north and 2 tribes went to the south, so it's and the family together is 12 tribes, and which we are all family, which means it's our history, right? Not just the history of the Jews, which is the tribe of Judah and Benjamin. It's actually all of our history, because we're family. When did we forget that? We're family. Sorry. All right, Isaac corrected me. This is a dishwasher door, not an oven. Purim is about destiny. It's about being, having a destiny on your life. All of Israel is destined to choose one way or the other, right? So we don't believe in predestination. The scriptures does not teach predestination, but the idea of destiny, like we are predestined to choose. We're predestined to choose one way or the other. So we get this choice. We're chosen to choose, and I think that's one of my cards in here. But it's about destiny. I tell you, when the movie One Night with the King came out in the theaters, I thought that I was going to go and my destiny was going to I was so excited to go to that movie. And I get in there, and of course, you know, the book is always better than the movie, kind of thing. I was a little disappointed in the drama that they added to the movie, but that idea of I think everyone really wants to know that they have this amazing destiny that they want to walk in. I'm not sure that we want to walk in the kind of destiny that that Queen Esther had to walk, because she didn't know what was going to become of her life in that moment. So, but definitely destiny is part of the story of Purim. Purim is about Amalek, actually. It's not just about Israel. It's not just about the Jews and what the family went through there, but it's also about Amalek and his story. Like, how did he... So you could, through, in homeschool, when we talk about Purim, you could look at like the history of Haman and where he came from, and how he's connected to the Amalekites, and which Yahovah is going to wipe out the name of them someday. How he's connected to Esau. The Amalekites came from Esau, and all this stuff. So it's about Amalek's history. Purim is also about preserving the line of Judah. So had the line of Judah, our brother Judah, been severed, had Haman been successful in genociding, or however you say that, wiping out the Jews at that point, then the Messiah could not have come, at least not in the way it was prophesied to come. So this story is very, very important to remember, because it's how Yahovah came through for his people, but it's how he came through to preserve the line of Judah so that the Messiah could come. Had that not happened, it would have been a different story. Perhaps it couldn't have happened. Perhaps everything would be done at that point. Or perhaps Yahovah would have figured out how to get Yahshua here in another way. I don't know. But this is also a topic of Purim that is something to think about and study into. Preserving the line of Judah. Pretty cool one. So Purim is about knowing the king's law and how to interpret it. If you remember, there's 7 advisors who are nearest the king, and those advisors knew his law, but they also knew how to interpret it. So, which I think is really crucial as you think about, if you want to be close to Yahovah, like intimate connection with him, then the only way to do that is to know his law. But you also have to know how to interpret it. Do you remember in the story, the king actually asks the advisors that were closest to him, the 7 wise people, the wisest in the kingdom that were closest to him, what should be done? What does the law say, and how can I deal with the situation? So those men knew his law and also how to interpret it. Very important. Purim is about preparing to come before the king. This is huge. Purim is about preparing to come before the king. How do you prepare to come before the king? What do you get dressed in? What does he like? You know, how do you present yourself? How do you prepare to meet the king? It's the hugest part of Purim and the part that gets the most personal in this. And we are going to talk in just a little bit about how to do this. Okay? This one I kind of wanted to start with. Purim is about Yahovah's provision. Yahweh's provision. He provided for the line of Judah to not be cut off so the Messiah could come. He provided a way, a decree of life. He provided Queen Esther the idea on how to go to the king. There's all kinds of things that he provided in the story. So it's a beautiful thing to remember at Purim, how Yehovah provided, how he came through for his people. Purim is about repenting. All right, so I hope that you were able to read the Apocrypha. Here we go, this little red book. And in here, in the, I believe it is the, let me find it here. The rest of the books of Esther. Yeah, the rest of the chapters of the book of Esther. I just never remember that. In here, you discover all kinds of things. And one thing that I love about the Apocrypha is that it shows us the prayers of Queen Esther, shows us the prayers of Mordecai, and the prayers of the king. So something just to jump back on in the idea of history and looking at which king this was that was actually her husband. I listened to a video this morning, a teaching on it, and they were kind of saying how it was one of 5 kings that were known to be around about that time of Queen Esther. And there's all kinds of division on who this king is. And so this guy who was teaching said that he felt very sure that it was Xerxes. So you had King Cyrus, and then you have under him Cornelius or something, he's a son, and then you have a nephew, Darius, nephew to Cyrus and Darius' son Xerxes, and then Xerxes has a son, Artaxerxes. Well, this guy was making a point, he was trying to make the point that this was Xerxes. Xerxes was incredibly mean. He was incredibly intimidating. He did things that were awful. He burned Athens to the ground in revenge for the Greeks whooping their bums, him and his dad's bums, back to Persia. In here, the king actually seems extremely kind, as in this king in here does not want war. He wants peace. So you look at his prayers, you look at what he, the edicts that he wrote out to his kingdom, and how he explains to his kingdom that he felt trapped to Haman's plot. Everything in there says that he really wanted peace. I don't see Xerxes as ever wanting peace. I mean, there's no way that man wanted peace. So in my view, from what I'm no historical buff, I am no expert on this, but since there's all kinds of ideas out there and none of it is grounded in true reality because we don't actually have a date for Queen Esther being there. Where are those books that that was read to the king that night? I'd like to know where those are. So I'd like to read those. But the idea of the king being kind lends me to believe that this was Cyrus that she was married to, Cyrus the Great. In fact, Cyrus is mentioned in the scriptures, I think this guy said 42 times. I mean, Yehovah calls him his shepherd. He some of the terminology that Yahovah uses when he's talking about King Cyrus is actually, it sounds very similar to how Yahovah talks about Yahshua. My point is that in the Apocrypha, you see the prayers of Queen Esther, which is full of repentance. This is how the ancients used to come before Yahovah when there was an issue, when there was a problem. They would start their prayers with repentance. And that's something that I learned and Isaac learned a long time ago, is that, if we really wanted to pray like the ancients, then we probably should come before Yahovah first with a repentance, we have not kept your covenant. We have built idols. We are so immensely sorry. We want to Shema. We want to change. Forgive us, this sort of thing. So it's about repenting, how to repent. And I love it because you look at Queen Esther and you watch how she repented, and then do the same. How she repented in her prayer. All right, and I think Mordecai's prayer is awesome as well. All right, next. All right, it's also about poetic justice, of course. The whole story with Haman getting hanged on the gallows that he built for Mordecai, poetic justice, big time. And I know that a lot of us really, really, really want justice done. I know my husband does. And in the end, Yahshua will get it. He will make it so. I got up early. That's kind of how I ended up doing it, was when the kids were really small. Now they get up later. They're teenagers. It's different. But I got up really early. So I would get up before anybody woke up. And then by 8 o'clock at night, I'm exhausted, and my husband's scraping me off the floor and putting me into bed. That's kind of how it goes. But, there's seasons of your life. Things change. So no, don't worry. It's not the end of the world if we have seasons, and sometimes we're great on our knees, and other times we're not. It's just, it's seasons. Okay. Also, this is about doing beautiful in the middle of hard. Remember we talked about this last week, the idea of doing beautiful in the middle of hard. I love the story because I love what she does when there's a death threat over her head. She asks Israel to fast and pray. She fasts and prays for 3 days and 3 nights, and during that time she's seeking the Ruach HaKodesh, and the Ruach gives her the idea to throw a banquet. And that she didn't just do paper cups, and do nothing. She took everything and made it 100-fold better. She took out all the stops to do this. I'm sure that she made herself as beautiful as she possibly could, and she made the senses and the sounds and the food. You win a man through food, through his stomach, right? So that she took all kinds of extravagant things to lavish on the king on those 2 banquets. So doing this in the middle of hard, and this is where I think Israel is called to celebrate these feasts all throughout the year. And in the middle of hard of our own life, but hard actually, the world. The world is just an incredible place to live right now. It's the end of the age, and there's all kinds of things set against us. There's all kinds of awful things happening out there, and nearby. And yet, His people, not only are they going to be known by their love, but they're going to be known as a people who are keeping these feasts and festivals. And these are joyous times. So we're going to be celebrating feasts and throwing parties in the middle of, the world going down. I think that's amazing. We're going after people. We're fishing for people. We're trying to show people where the lifeboat is. We're trying to get people on the lifeboat. We're trying to show them where the path is, of course. But at the same time, we're obeying Yahovah, and part of that obeying is all these feast days. It's this rhythm, and you're going to be celebrating these beautiful feasts while there is panic in the streets, while the pagans are running to and fro and freaking out. You're not going to be freaking out because you've got this wonderful rhythm to grab onto. You know what you're supposed to be doing on these certain days, and you know who your Elohim is. And you're confident in who He is because these feasts remind you about how He came through for His people. So in the end of the age, as the world's going down and you're going to be like, wow, that fear is going to be knocking at your door, these feasts, as you go throughout, through the years with them, they're going to remind you of His goodness, of His ability to come through for you and through for us, collectively, individually. I love these feasts because they're real. And he says, remember how he says in the scriptures, remember, remember, remember. Remember me to your children. Remember that I did this for you. This is why Purim was set up, was so that Israel would remember the ways of Yahweh, that you would remember how he came through, that how he destroyed our enemies, right? And we all want that. In the end, we all do have enemies. If you don't have an enemy, then there's something wrong, okay? Because if you're walking with Yahweh, if you're a believer in Yeshua, you are going to have enemies. Whether it is demonic or whether it is people, you're going to have enemies. And you need a God. You need an Elohim to show up for you and to rescue you. You know, that's why we sacrifice to an Elohim. That's why we choose one, and then we sacrifice to that Elohim, because we want that Elohim, who has a really great track record, to save us, to come through for us, to give us what we need so that we can have life, because we all want life, right? And so people are going to sacrifice to different gods in order to get life. I choose Yehovah Elohim, just like Joshua. He says, me and my house, we will serve Yehovah. Same here. Me and my house, we will serve Yehovah. And that's the God, that's the Elohim that we choose to sacrifice to, because I know that he has a great track record, and he is going to give back to me life abundantly. And there's so much life here that we get, but also for the future, also, you know, for eternity. Strategy. How she came up with that idea to go before the king, unbelievable. It's all about strategy. So yes, being smart, being wise, having some strategy. It's like when Papa asks you to do something, there's some strategy there involved. It's good. So the work of the Ruach. Yes, remember the Ruach is like Haggai. So Haggai represents a type of Ruach HaKodesh. So Queen Esther goes to Haggai and says, how should I go to the king? What should I wear? Right. So she went to Haggai and said, what should I wear? You tell me, because you know the king, and I will wear whatever that is, because that's going to please the king, because you know him. Same thing here. We don't know Yehovah, and so we go to the Ruach, who was given by Yeshua to live in us, to indwell in us, to show us how to dress to meet the king, right? So this story is all about the work of the Ruach HaKodesh. Purim is about a king choosing his bride. A king choosing his bride. So we're talking about Yehovah choosing his bride. So Yehovah chooses, Israel back with Abraham. And then that was the old covenant, basically. And then you have the new covenant Israel. So he's choosing a new bride. So it's about the king choosing a bride. Beautiful parallels right there. It is also about how the king chooses to display his splendor. And if you got to if you got to watch Jim Staley's 2014 video on this, oh my gosh, so beautiful. How the king chooses to display his splendor. So Yehovah wants to show his glory through his people, through his bride. So the king asked Vashti to come. She didn't come. He wanted to show off her beauty, but basically it was not her naked. He wanted to show off how he adorned her, so how he treated her. The bride is the splendor of the king, and he wanted to show her off, and she wouldn't let him. So Queen Esther let him. This is like, we're going to talk about this in a second, how it relates to us. So let's go forward. Yehovah chooses to display his splendor by putting his glory. He wants to step back, and he wants to show you off. And we're going to look at what it is that he wants to put on your dress. So we'll do that in a second. All right. Purim is also about... I do like that. My bubbles. Okay. It's also about the irrevocable legal arrangement. And this is something that I really wanted to... Sorry. I thought there was a bug there. Sorry, I didn't touch it. It's about the irrevocable legal arrangement. So basically you have a situation where the Jews, Brother Judah, was at that time, just because they were Jews, meant that they were going to die. So it had nothing to do with how they believed, in the sense of, what individual uniqueness there was or what they had done or anything like that. It had to do with just the fact that they were Jews, that they were going to die. And Haman was going to make sure that the king knew that they weren't obeying his laws, and then come into this illegal arrangement with the king in order to assure the death of these people just because they were Jews. How he said it to the king was, these are these people who don't obey your laws. So I want to just put your head forward just a little bit into the idea of, here's Hasatan, Satan, who has basically come into a legal arrangement with Yahovah in the sense of, we're human, and humanity stepped away from Yahovah. They fell at the garden, and thus they came under the curse of sin, which means that we broke the law of love, the royal law of love that goes forever, everlasting, and thus deserve to die. And so and then you look around and, the idea of we break his law, break Yehovah's law, have our own laws, and thus Hasatan says to the king, hey, these people are keeping their own laws and they deserve to die. Because they're not keeping your laws, I'm going to stick you to this. So he's got this legal arrangement going on. This is my point with this, is that there's this illegal arrangement going on, but it's irrevocable, because you remember how in the story, the king couldn't even change his own law, right? So he couldn't just rewrite, or he couldn't just do away with it. It's interesting on some of the Bible stories, when you watch the story of Esther, and some of the cartoon ones, it's like, oh, he just, made it vanish. No, the story doesn't end right there. There is more to do. Like, there's a decree of life and a decree of death that happened, but it's irrevocable. So he couldn't just make it go away. It stood. And the same thing with us. Like, when we break the law, it stands. And so the whole idea, Yehovah's whole plan, was to get us a way by which we could keep the royal law of love and live. So Hasatan's going to say, no, you can't go into the pearly gates because you broke his law. Yehovah, they broke your law, ain't going to happen. So Yehovah will say, no, those people were on the way. They found Yahshua, they walked in the way, they kept my laws with eating of Yahshua, with the Ruach HaKodesh living in them. They kept the royal law of love. I have the documentation right here. It's the Shabbat. It's the engagement ring. Remember, the sign of the covenant is Shabbat. You keep Shabbats. Every weekly Shabbat and the yearly Shabbats, you're in contract basically with Yahovah. It's a legal arrangement. So Hasatan will actually release his claim. He's forced to release his claim legally. He is forced to release his claim on you if you're in this irrevocable legal arrangement with Yahovah. So does that make any sense? Anyway, that is something to consider during Purim. Called by name. Yes, Purim is about being called by name. So remember, she is not going to, she has her one night with the king, but only the lady who he calls for by name is going to become queen. So, and also, if you look through the story, no one can come to the king uncalled for. So if you approach the king without having been called, you're basically dead. So I think it's really interesting. In the Apocrypha, it talks about how he was in the Holy of Holies. So in his palace, there was a throne room, and that was the Holy of Holies. And you didn't just go waltzing into the Holy of Holies. You had to be called by name. And something that has been striking me this week, as I've been preparing for Purim, is this whole idea of being called by name. There's something, man, I just don't get it. I have had conversations with people about this, but how is it that some people get eyes to see and some people don't? How is it in one family you can have one kid get it and the other kid not? You can have one parent get it, one parent not. Or you can have, grandma, grandpa get it, but the kid, I don't get it. Like, so how is it that one person is called and the other one is not? But I think it really has to do with the choices that we make all throughout our life. In that, if we begin to make choices towards Yahovah and we're hungry for him and hungry for the truth, then he's going to honor that by giving you eyes to see and ears to hear. He's going to honor that hunger. But if you think you're great, if everything is fine, and if you're happy with the system and the matrix where it is, and then he's going to solidify you wherever you are. So just like with Pharaoh, he didn't give him a hard heart. He gave him what he wanted. So he gave Pharaoh what he wanted. He solidified his decisions. So over the course of Pharaoh's life, Pharaoh constantly decided towards himself and away from Yahweh. So Yahweh just gave him what he wanted, and then he used it to his own to Yahweh's own purposes. It's the same with us. I know a lot of people who are being solidified in their rebellion, and other people who are being solidified in their obsession with Yahweh. And so I think that being called by name into that most holy room in this story is very important to talk about and think about, because it means that that he has given you eyes to see and ears to hear. That's beautiful. Okay, it's about pleasing the king. What pleases the king? I need the indwelling of the Ruach HaKodesh to tell me what pleases the king, right? Queen Esther needed Haggai to tell her what pleased the king. Yeah, so it's about pleasing the king. So we're pleasing Yahovah. Remember, we're not pleasing ourselves. We're going to please Yahovah. And we want to know what Yahovah... Oh, I probably just nicked that, didn't I? Purim is also about the revelation of that which was hidden. So it's about being hidden. Of course, it's some of that, but it's also about the revelation of that which was hidden. So it's a revelation of Queen Esther, her nationality. And there's all kinds of beautiful things in here to study. Also about the two brides. So you have Vashti, bride number 1, who wants to do things her way, having her own feast on the 7th day in her own palace.
Rebellious queen.
Yes.
But she didn't even come to the real banquet.
Right.
Her own banquet in the king's palace.
Right.
And she did not attend to the real banquet.
Yes. And the real banquet is on Shabbat. We have a lot of people who are celebrating a banquet of their own making on Sunday or on other feast days, right? So that idea of Queen Vashti being the rebellious bride who wanted to do things her own way. And then you have Queen Esther who desired to do things the king's way. So she is the obedient bride, right? So there's the two brides to consider during this festival. Knowing who you are. So remember, Mordecai said, don't forget you are a Jew. Don't forget you are a Jew, right? So it's about knowing who you are. And for us, we have to remember in this day and age that we are daughters and sons of YHVH Elohim. And that is so important. You must know who your Elohim is, your creator. You must know who your creator is in order to know and to remember who you are. This society is so mixed up. It is so disgusting and sick that they have confused us. They've confused us. I mean, I can't believe you can choose, I can't believe you can choose female, male, and other. Come on! There's no other. Female, male. That's the two he created. So we have to know who we are. And we do that by knowing who our Elohim is. She knew who she was because of how she was raised, and that Mordecai commanded her, don't forget who you are. Using your lot in life. And this I talk about a lot when you're talking about the feasts and how to do the feasts and stuff. How if you're in a situation where you have a lot of money, it makes it easy, kind of, but if you have no money, then you have to do it anyway. And how do you do that? So your lot in life, whatever situation that you find yourself in, is your husband on board? Is he not? Are your children on board? Are they not? Is your community on board? Are they not? Whatever, are you single? Are you a widow? Are you divorced? Are you married happily with children? Whatever your case may be, wherever you live, that is your lot in life, and using that to obey and to do for Yahweh's kingdom as he needs you to do. Purim is also about two of the most powerful things, the decree of death. Okay, that was irrevocable. It was just because you were a Jew, you were going to die. So just because we are human, the lot is you die, right? So the decree, we've broken his law, so therefore we deserve to die. So there's this decree of death that is absolutely irrevocable. It can't be changed. Yehovah can't change that fact. No matter how much he loves you, he cannot change that fact. That if you break it, you die, and everyone's broken it at this point, except Yahshua, right? Okay, but what's so cool about the story is it's also about the decree of life. So when they went around town at the end of the story, there's all these decree of death decrees hanging around town, right? Well, Mordecai and Esther were given the power to hang right next to it a decree of life that said you get to fight for your life on Adar 13. You don't have, because back in those days, as far as I understand, you couldn't fight for your life. I mean, they basically, and I don't know exactly what would happen, sort of thing, because they were going to kill you, but if you did win, you probably wouldn't get to live, idea. So the decree of life was so crucial. It's irrevocable. So the king asked everyone in his provinces to fight with the Jews against their enemy, not fight against them. But those two hung together at the same place. That's what blows my mind, is like, for us, we also have a decree of death and a decree of life right there, hanging, right above us. It's either one or the other, and but they're both there, and they're both irrevocable. You just got to figure out how to get on the path to this one, because they had to fight for it, remember? So it wasn't just given to them. They had to fight for it. The same thing here. You just don't get life. You have to actually fight for it, which is a new concept in the idea of, coming out of Christianity. Because with that grace idea, sloppy grace. There's grace, but grace means a way has been made. Mercy means that, that mercy is his decision of whether this person makes it or not. That's mercy, he knows, and so that's why we can't judge, just because he's the one that's the final judge, and he is the one that holds, all the mercy. He's the one that will dole it out, right? But grace means there's a way that has been made that you can walk to get life. But you have to fight for it. You actually have to walk it. Nobody's going to carry you. It just doesn't happen that way. Remember the legal arrangement. It's this legal arrangement that we've got to remember. Let me have that one. Okay. Purim is also about being chosen, which probably should have been one of the first ones. But anyway, it's about being chosen. We're chosen to choose, right? That's what Israel is chosen to choose. So being chosen. Purim is about the dress, okay? It is about the dress. Like, what dress did Queen Esther wear that day that made him, just Twitter-pated, or made him fall in love with her? What did she do? For sure, but the dress was something, you know how it is, the dress. I mean, I remember when Queen Diana, or Lady Diana, got married, and, it was all about the dress. Remember, Yahshua said in his parable, remember the parable? He's like, there's this great wedding feast, and this man was in and didn't have the wedding garment on, and Yahshua, in the story, the guy says, how did you get in here? You shouldn't be in here without the wedding garment. And the guy, got in, and Yahshua actually says, basically bind him and throw him out to where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. So he didn't have the proper wedding garment on. So these are all my bubbles for this part. Now I'm going to just go into the dress for a few minutes, and then the ornaments, and then we're done. We're going to do my little Purim doll. A couple years ago, I was trying to figure out how to teach my daughters how to get the wedding garment on, how to get the dress on, what dress it was, what does that look like. So what I came up with was Barbie doll. I came up with, let me get this off here. The bride Israel. So you see, that is, whoops, maybe you can't see. Nope, there we go. All right, so this is the bride Israel, okay? Of course, she doesn't come to the king in her underwear. You can't come to the king in your underwear, so you got to have a pretty dress on. But how this whole thing goes is the heart of Israel was black. And I normally have a little black heart, and I put it right there. But in order to get the good heart, the noble heart, the good heart that where the seeds of truth were going to fall, and it was going to be on good soil, the way to get this, Yahshua came, he puts the Ruach HaKodesh in us and gives us a new heart, a heart of flesh. So then I have a red heart. Put it right there. So basically with the dark heart, the black heart, you go through Hanukkah. Hanukkah you go through to get rid of idolatry. Pretty much just idolatry. It's everything. I mean, you've got to get rid of idolatry in your heart in order to be able to have the Ruach HaKodesh live in you. In order to be able to eat of Yahshua, you have to get rid of the idolatry, right? So this is my little illustration to help my children understand this. You have the Israel, and you have the black heart. You go through Hanukkah, you get cleansed, you come out the other side, you're getting the new heart, right? And now, as Yahshua said, love YHVH your Elohim with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength, all your everything, and love others as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two things. So when I read that, I was like, oh, of course. So these arms, these shoulders, your hands come from your shoulders, right? And your dress hangs from the shoulders, right? From your shoulders. So this is really important to understand how to wear the dress. And this is where Yeshua's teaching comes into play so much, is that we have to have something to hang the dress on, and that's these shoulders. And what does he say? Everything hangs on these two things. What are those two things? Love YHVH your Elohim with all your heart. Love others as yourself. So I'm going to put love YHVH in this hand, because remember, hands mean doing, hands mean action, verbs, right? So it's not supposed to be just in your head, it's supposed to be here. So then love others on the other hand. All the law and the prophets hang on these two things. Okay, so what is the dress? What did he just say hangs on these two things? All the law and the prophets. Okay, so all the law. All right, so now as we divide the word of truth, we discover that the law is that everlasting royal law of love in Exodus, found in Exodus 19 through 24. That is the royal law of love written down for us. That is the royal law. That is the white dress. Okay? So the white dress is righteousness. Righteousness is right doings. How do we know what is right doings? We look at the law. And we say YHVH's law tells us what is right and wrong. So the right doings is the dress. All right, I'm going to read this to you. Here we go. In Revelation 19, 8 through 9, it says, let us rejoice and celebrate and give him the glory. For the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. She was given clothing of fine linen, linen bright and pure. For the fine linen she wears is the righteous acts of the saints. Then the angel told me to write, blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Oh, can you see in there? I mean, we see an invitation, like you have to be invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. The invitation comes, but if you have eyes to see in your chair, then you'll be there. You'll respond to that invitation appropriately, right? And then she was given clothing of fine linen, bright and pure. And that fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. So righteousness is right doings. Right doings is, how do we know what right doings is? We look at YHVH's law and says that's right doings. And now that we have understood the change, that when Shiloh came, that there was going to be change in law, how that whole thing worked, we can pinpoint, after we rightly divide the word of truth, we can pinpoint and find out what law that is and how we're supposed to be actually keeping it. We look at Yahshua and what Yahshua preached, and Yahshua said you got to do it with love. You got to do it with loving YHVH with all your heart, and you got to do it with loving others with all your heart. The law hangs on those two things. All right, one other verse I'm going to read you. Matthew 22:11-14 says,
when the king came in to see the guests, this was the parable, remember? But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. He asked, "How did you get in here without clothes, my friend?" The man was speechless. Then the king told the attendants, "Tie him hand and foot and throw him outside into the darkness where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen." Wow. Did you catch that? Somebody showed up to the great wedding feast without the right garments, and they were thrown out into where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. I don't want to go there. I want to be inside. I want to have the right dress on. I want to have the right garment on. I want to have that bright, and pure dress that he wants us to wear. And then few are chosen. So many are invited, but few are chosen. Wow, unpack that is like huge. The white dress. Ah! So I love paper dolls. So I have this little, I put the white dress on her. After this, I'm going home to eat. Eat. I'm so hungry. I'm getting out, it's like you can go for a while. You can go for a long time. As long as you don't put anything in your mouth for those days that you're fasting, you're okay. But once you get one little bite, then you're like, oh, I want more. Isaac and I went on a 14-day fast one time when we really needed some answers, and that was such a wild experience. You get past 3 days, and then you don't feel like starving anymore. You actually feel very clear, and your body starts to clear itself out. It's that first meal back is so important to do right. Yeah, fasting is a real huge practice in self-control. All right, so this is the white dress. This is the pure white linen wedding garment of righteousness, or right doings. So that's what we've got to figure out. What is the right doings? What does Papa think are right doings? I'm going to guarantee you that it's not what your church tells you if you're still in church. It is not what Christianity tells you. The white dress is keeping his right doings, his law, his royal law of love. And that's Exodus 19 through 24. But we keep it by loving Yahovah and loving others. So it hangs on these two things, right? All right, now we're going to talk just for a little bit about the splendor, because that's part of the story, is that the king wanted to show off his splendor. And to do that, he was going to call in his most beautiful object, if you want to say it that way, which is a bad way to say it, I think, but his most beautiful gift that he has, it was his queen. And how does he ornate her? He wasn't asking her to show up naked. He was asking her to show up in her royal crown with the wedding. That thing would have been so heavy, so full of jewels and priceless. It probably would have been very, very exhausting to put on. Idea, though, was that he wanted to show off how he had given her splendor. So Queen Vashti didn't allow it. First Israel did not allow it. Israel, mother, if you want to say it that way. Ancient Israel did not allow it. They went off and had their own feast days, had their own parties, which a lot of, scattered Israel is still in the process of doing, and they're coming out right now, right? We all have. We're all coming out and realizing that we've been celebrating on the wrong days, and we want to repent of that and change our ways to be the obedient bride. But he wanted to show off his splendor. So the first bride, Vashti, would not let him. She was being rebellious. Same in our story. But now in our story, we find that there are people that are choosing Yahovah, coming out of rebellion and allowing him to show off his splendor through them. So we want to look at what that looks like, just like Queen Esther. Queen Esther allowed him to show her off to the nations. So I have this little overlay. It's sparkly. So on this dress is all these sparkles. So we're supposed to sparkle. We're supposed to shine. You know how Yahshua says, you are the salt of the earth? And if salt loses its saltiness, then it's just thrown out onto the road. Well, up here in Idaho, there's a ton of salt used on the roadways during the winter, and it's just thrown out there, and I think about this all the time. I'm like, we're supposed to be salt. What does salt do to a dish? It livens it up. It flavors it, right? So we're supposed to be flavorful and salty. And there's way too many sterile people out there. There's way too much, complacency. There's way too much, people not exploring their gifts and uniqueness to salt the earth with. So this is part of the splendor, in your own uniqueness, in your own creativity, in the own personality makes up you, because there is no one else on the planet like you. How do you salt the earth for him? How do you sparkle and shine for him? I think about this all the time, and I think I want to do that. I want to sparkle and shine for him. I want to salt the earth, and I'm going to do it in my own unique Rebekah sort of way. And I think that's what we all need to be doing. So we have this sparkle overlay right here. Now, what I did one year was I had a big doll. I made a big doll, had this sparkle overlay, and then I gave everyone like a little bow or an ornament kind of thing. They were bows, I think. And they wrote down, after I had a lot of scriptures for them to read, they wrote down on that bow what constituted sparkle according to Yahweh. And you have to look in the scriptures and you find out what he likes and what pleases him, what he wants us to shine with. How do we walk like Yahshua and shine like him? So he was kind, he was merciful, he was he was fierce, he was strong, he was courageous, he was brave. All these things are what we're supposed to be like. And so Yehovah is like, I'm going to give you all this stuff, but I'm going to show you off. This is a beautiful part of Purim. All right, so on this dress, here, let me put it right here. See if I can't get my sparkle layer to stay. Some of the pleasing ornaments are fruits of the Ruach HaKodesh. Fruits of the Ruach. With the love, joy, peace, patience, long-suffering. The fruits of the Spirit, the fruits of the Ruach. That makes your dress sparkle. All right? Being taught by the Ruach. Now, I want you to know there are so many in here in the scriptures. You can find so many things that allude to, talk directly to about how he wants, Israel to sparkle for him. So fruits of the Ruach, taught by the Ruach, as in, you have the ability to be taught, teachable. The righteousness or right doings. This is following the law. So feast days, Shabbats, tithing, all that kind of stuff would be in the righteous. That white dress behind is going to show through, right? So being wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove, having only one master, Yahshua, living by the greatest commandment, love Yehovah your Elohim with all your heart, all your soul, your mind, love others as yourself. Having persistence, being persistent, walking in the light, loving yourself. Did you know that you're supposed to love yourself? Because how you love yourself, how you love others is a reflection on how you love yourself. So if you don't love others very well, you obviously are not loving yourself very well. So a beautiful thing there that Yehovah says, I want you to love yourself, not in a bad way, not in an idolatry sort of way, but in a way that says you're good to your heart. If you're so mean to your heart, that's where the Ruach lives. Can I say that again? If you're mean to your heart, to yourself, how can the Ruach hang out there? She wouldn't want to, because you're so mean to yourself, right? So it's really important. All right, where are we? Being a servant to others, like Yahshua, who got down and washed their feet, being a servant. Rejoicing, rejoice, having joy and rejoicing in your heart. Being generous. These things, again, are sparkles, okay? They're not the dress. So the dress itself is the right doings, okay? That's going to get you in. But the sparkles is how he wants to ornate you. And I love how Jim Staley talks about this. Having a good and noble heart. Being a peacemaker. Wearing the armor of Yehovah. Being merciful. Loving justly. Loving justly. That's a whole topic in itself, is it not? Being salty and flavorful. Being salt. Yes, being salt and flavorful. Proclaiming the truth. That is a sparkle. Being compassionate. Being compassionate is a sparkle. Let's see, and here's another one. Withdrawing to pray. Being humble. Being humble, having humbleness. Giving to the poor. Hadassah, aren't you hand me all the rest of those? Having unfailing faith in him. Having unfailing faith. Being unafraid. Not being ruled by fear. Which, oh man, I can speak to that enough, because there's so much fear-mongering going on. You know, everybody's scared. And believers are frankly buying into it, I have to say. There's so much about, you know, they're watching us, there's surveillance and all this other stuff. And yes, there is, but Papa's watching us. Can I get some loves on that? You know, I mean, who cares what man is doing? You know, you can't run and hide. You're supposed to be a light, and a light means that you shine. A light means that you put it up on a lamppost and you shine so that everyone in the room can, you know, take advantage of that light. If you hide it, which is what the fear-mongering wants to happen, you know, it's what Hasatan wants to happen, is when you know the truth, he wants you to be quiet. So if he can shut you up by having you cater to fear and be ruled by fear, then he will win. But if you believe that Yehovah is watching, that Yehovah will take care of you, that Yehovah loves you. Yes, there's wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove idea, absolutely, and there's strategy and all that stuff. But to be somebody who walks with no fear, to somebody who believes that Yehovah sees them and that they have asked them to be a light. Fear has no place in your life. It has no place whatsoever. So that is a sparkle. That's a sparkle. We'll have only one master, Yahshua. Absolutely. Walk in the light. Did we already talk about that? Walk in the light. A new heart. Walk humbly with Yehovah. And ladies, the idea of walking with Yehovah, this feast rhythm is about walk. This is how you walk with Yehovah. Did you hear me? This feast rhythm is how you walk with Yehovah. It's what he set up for you to walk with him. Because you're going to walk with him every day, every week, every month, all year long. You are going to walk with him and do things the way he wants it done, and talk about things that he wants to talk about, not what the church wants to talk about, not about the lesson plan that the church gives you and all this other stuff. You know, you are going to walk humbly with Yehovah, as in, where do you want to go today, Papa? I'm here. That, I can't say enough about that. Okay, and the ability to repent, the ability to shema. So, what you wear determines your destiny. What you wear determines your destiny. Which dress do you wear? What dress do you wear? Do you have a wedding dress that has a bunch of stains on it? Do you need it cleaned up? What you wear determines your destiny. For more of this, there's the characteristics of a Melchizedek priest workbook that I have created, and an online course that will take you through about 332 or 36 things that Yahshua thinks are really things that you need to be wearing on your dress. Things that make you sparkle. Ways that you keep the right doings of the white dress. How you do it. So that there's so many here, so many ways that you can sparkle and shine for him, and things that he loves that will impress him and make him, you know, just so happy that you are here, that you are, you know, that you are showing off his glory to the nations. I know for me, I really want Papa to find joy when he looks at me. Like, You know how it says in the scriptures, like the eyes of Yehovah run to and fro across the world. Who is listening to him? Who is paying attention? You know, and when he does that, and there's so much sorrow, so much pain as he's looking around the earth. And I just want him, when he sees me, I want him to pause and go, oh, yes. Yeah, I love her. I like her. You know, I want him to be filled with joy when he sees my life. I want him to know me by name. I want to be called by name. I'm going to, you know, shout it out. I'm going to get loud because I want to be known. I want him to know my name. And I want him to call me by name. It's the most important thing in my life. For my papa to see me, to call me by name. I'm going to give you one closing thought, and this is how the process, what the feasts reveal about the process that you could go through during the year with Yehovah. So basically, you know, we have Hanukkah. And during Hanukkah, you identify idols, you get rid of the idols, you get a heart cleansing. So then you get your heart cleansed. So then you're ready to go into Purim. At Purim is when you begin to think about, what dress do I wear? How do I prepare to meet my king? And then you go into, you're preparing at that point. And then the spring, then you're ready for the spring feast, because the spring feast, you take the dress that you had and you get it washed in the blood of Yahshua at Pesach, and it cleans it. And then you are prepared to begin eating of Yahshua, who will sustain you, bread of life that never fails, water that never fails. I mean, like, if you're thirsty, come to me, we'll give you living water, you know, eat of him and you will never be hungry, you know, the bread of life. So you begin to eat of him during unleavened bread, right? And then you have Shavuot. Once you have, you're eating of Yahshua, you have the clean dress on. At Shavuot, then you come into contract with Yehovah. Then you get the Ruach HaKodesh to live in you. Oh, preparing you completely for the whole cycle again. And I know on some level, some of this breaks down because it kind of overlaps, but it's the idea that you are then prepared after Shavuot to meet your king on Yom Teruah. And at Yom Teruah, you know, you meet your king. On Yom Kippur, you get your you get your acquittal stone, you get acquitted, and then, during Sukkot, you enter into this living together arrangement with Elohim, and then on Shemini Atzeret, it's consummation. I mean, how much more beautiful can you get? You have this beautiful cycle, and Hanukkah and Purim are all about preparing your heart. They're the only two feasts that are just singly, really, really about this personal condition of your heart. You know, and the personal condition of you. Hanukkah all about cleansing the heart. Purim all about what are you wearing.